Hey guys, so I wanted to sit down and kind of go through a review of our overall chapters for PFT 120, our youth fitness training class. This is just kind of a quick review before the final exam of sort of everything we've talked about until now. So looking at our review of chapter 1, which is just that rationale of, for youth fitness, we need to understand the difference between children's versus adolescents, right? Children are going to be ages like 2 to 11, and adolescents are going to be like 12 up to 19. We have our terms obesity, overweight, normal weight, and underweight. The calculation for that is still going to be the same, but the percentiles is going to be different, right? So percentiles for youths are different. We have our normal percentiles of 5 all the way up to 85th. Anything within there is considered a normal weight range, and then that percentile is different for age, 5, 6, 7, 8, like whatever, right? Depending on what age it happens to be, the percentile number of pounds fluctuates, but the percentile remains consistent, and that's something that we definitely want to remember. So anything up to about 85 is considered normal weight. 85th to 95th percentile is going to be considered overweight, and anything above the 95th percentile is going to be considered obese. So we know that obesity is on the rise, and that's usually likely due to increased meals away from home, an increase in, lower activity levels and increased reliance on technology. And so we want to work to kind of curb that. So looking at chapter 2 here, we know that obviously the physiologic differences between youths and adults are pretty vast, right? Youths demonstrate different exercise capacities. They don't necessarily have a great anaerobic engine, and so they're typically going to focus on aerobic exercise. Because of their decreased testosterone, they're not going to experience muscular hypertrophy as frequently until they hit puberty. So we're not going to see that. Their body proportions, their sizes are very different, which makes it very difficult for them to sort of maintain body heat. And so they're not going to have as high of a stroke volume. So we want to make sure that we perform plenty of cardiorespiratory training to increase that stroke volume, lower blood pressure, and also that's going to lead to an overall change in their overall cardiac output, right? So they are metabolic non-specialists, which really just means that they are very good at the aerobic energy system and not so good at the anaerobic energy system. So all of that is obviously also going to be different for their hormone levels, right? They're going to have hormone differences. That's going to lead to differences in muscular size and strength. However, it doesn't mean that youths cannot get stronger. They absolutely can increase their strength. They're just going to do it through neural adaptations, right? Their brain's going to get better at the movements more so than they are going to increase their muscular size. So that's something that we're looking at there. They will obviously also experience growth spurts. That's something that we don't see in adults very often. Those growth spurts can affect their coordination. It can change their body composition. And as we start to get older, we are going to see a decrease in flexibility. So that's something we want to be aware of as well. Obviously, we can still use the OPT model. We just want to make sure that we make adjustments that we're going to continue talking about for the rest of this course, right? So talking about chapter 3 here, these psychological considerations, right? We know that the mind and the body are linked, right? Your mind is going to affect your body is going to affect your mind. And so changes in one is obviously going to lead to changes in the other. The big things that we understand is the psychological influences, right? We want to understand how self-efficacy is someone's belief or confidence that they can achieve specific tasks. And then we have self-esteem, which is the belief that somebody has, that they believe that they have value, right? All of those things are going to influence their quality of life, right? And that also leads to your self-perception, right? Your self-perception, again, your efficacy, your confidence, and your esteem, which is your competence, right? One of the best ways that we can ensure that we are affecting positive changes, we want to build good rapport, identify what values are important to our clients, as often as possible. So the 5 steps that we have for that are going to be vision, strategy, belief, persistence, and learning. Have a clear vision of what it is your client wants to achieve, scratch out a strategy for how you're going to achieve it, continue to believe that you are going to do that, overcome any adversity when challenges arise, and focus on like learning new perspectives and how to continue growing. Then we talk about chapter 4 here. That is our overall fitness assessments. So fitness assessments, obviously one of the most key important parts of like being a personal trainer. We have to be able to assess information in order to determine what strategies we have to overcome any challenges that our clients may be facing. So before we do any of this, we always want to develop an effective assessment program. We do want you to know the difference between objective and subjective information. Subjective information is that type of information that cannot be measured. Examples of that are going to include your PAR-Q, that's your physical activity readiness questionnaire, and your general and medical history questionnaire. Both of those are questions that are really important, but they don't necessarily give us information that we can measure, so they're not very objective, right? I cannot objectively hold them, right? You cannot ask somebody how much ankle sprain they have, But then we have our objective information, which is going to be physiologic information like heart rate, body composition information like number of pounds or body fat percentage, their posture, movement and performance assessments, right? How many degrees their knees cave in, or how fast they can run a mile, right? So that's our subjective information. That is our objective information. We have cardio assessments, right? Like the 1 mile walk run test. That's a really good way to test somebody's cardiorespiratory endurance. And then we have 3 special assessments that we do with youths, which are the 90-degree push-up test, which is basically 1 push-up every 3 seconds for as long as they can go. The curl-up test, which is the maximum number of sit-ups in 60 seconds. And the standing lung jump test, which is how far somebody can jump forward with 2 feet in 1 repetition. We are going to do assessment posture assessments as well, like the overhead squat assessment. That's a really big one, and the single leg squat assessment. And that's going to identify any movement compensations that we happen to have. If you see that your client, has knees caving in, we know that that's a movement compensation. They should be able to squat without their knees caving in. So they have overactive adductor muscles and internal rotators. We also have like our athletic assessments here, right? Like this is a performance assessment. So all these shark skill test where she's going to jump from box to 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 box. And what that does is that assesses lower body agility. We also have the Davies test, which is also a performance assessment where you have those 2 hands apart and you reach over and touch the opposite hand. That is an upper body agility assessment. So obviously all very important stuff. Now, we also have chapter 5 talking about our flexibility training. So once we have our assessments, then we can start talking, we can assess any or address any of the problems that we have sort of found through assessment. So flexibility training is obviously really important. Good flexibility is going to ensure that we maintain a full range of motion of the joints, right? That's actually our definition for flexibility, right? The ability to move a joint through its complete range of motion. When we have poor flexibility, that often leads to what we call relative flexibility, which is basically where somebody finds a way to get the movement done, but they're not really moving the way they're designed, right? Like they might tilt to one direction or the other in order to pick something up. That's relative flexibility, and that can cause overuse injuries and dysfunction. The 3 ways that we address flexibility, the 3 tools that we have in our OPT template are going to be corrective flexibility, active flexibility, and functional flexibility. Corrective flexibility is going to, what you're going to use in level 1 in the stabilization level. That's going to consist of SMR and static stretches. Active flexibility is going to be in level 2. That is the strength level. That is going to use active isolated stretches. Then in level 3, we're going to do functional flexibility, which will consist of dynamic stretches, and that's going to be in the power level. Talking about our cardio training, we have got cardiorespiratory activity is really important, being for youth, obviously for youths, but really for anybody. Cardiorespiratory training is any type of training that elevates your heart rate for an extended period of time. The most traditional level versions are like the treadmill, the spin bike, swimming, things like that. And those are really, really great, but sometimes they can get a little bit boring, so we want to be a little more creative, and that's where Circuit training comes in. Circuit training can be a really non-traditional method that is also really effective. Basically, you're just going to do strength training with limited rest, and that's going to feel exactly like cardio. So when we're designing a fitness program, we want to consider our cardio program. We want to consider what are called our FIT principles, which is an acronym. We want to consider the frequency, how many sessions per week, the intensity, the level of demand, the time, which is the length of time given in the activity, the type, which is the type of activity. Is it swimming? Is it running? Is it circuit training? And the enjoyment, right? How much pleasure your client is getting out of the activity. So circuit training has been shown to have like really high levels of enjoyment because it tends to be really engaging and much less boring, which is especially important when we're talking about youths. If we're looking about core and balance training in Chapter 7, we want to understand that balance training and core training both are going to mainly focus on strengthening our internal and external core muscles, like the muscles of our trunk, but it's also going to lead to higher levels of neuromuscular efficiency. So in our 3 levels here, we have the stabilization level, where we're going to use core stabilization exercises, the strength level, where we're going to use core strength exercises, and the power level, where we're going to use core power exercises. Balance training is also obviously very important. That's really important for developing bodily awareness and physical development by training in unstable environments. And again, in balance training, we have balance stabilization exercises in level 1, balance strength exercises in level 2, and balance power exercises in level 3. Really, there's no general guidelines on how often you are supposed to do balance training, but generally a good rule of thumb is going to be 2 to 3 times per week, just like your resistance training. If we're looking at reactive exercises and SAQ exercises as well, we want to remember that reactive exercises, or sometimes called plyometric exercises, are very quick, powerful movements that involve a rapid eccentric contraction, very little stabilization in the middle, and a rapid concentric contraction. That's going to leave us with very explosive movements. And again, we're going to perform this just like we did before. We're going to use plyometric stabilization and the stabilization level, plyometric strength and the strength level, and plyometric power and the power level. SAQ training, right? These are sometimes, when we're playing it with kids, often in the form of like drills and games. Basically, you've got your speed section, your agility section, and your quickness section. Speed is going to refer to your ability to move in one direction as fast as possible. Agility is going to refer to your ability to accelerate, decelerate, and change direction as fast as possible. And quickness is your ability to change body position and react to an external stimulus as fast as possible. So, speed would be me running from point A to point B. Agility would be running from point A to point B and then back to point A because I'm changing directions. And then quickness would be me running from point A to point B, changing directions, and then turning around and having to like catch a ball as it's mid-flight. I'd have to change my body position and react to it. So these are all really, really good because they decrease your likelihood of injury, and they've been shown to increase participation because they are, again, really, really fun. The big thing you want to ask yourself whenever you're doing it, though, is it safe, is it progressive, and is it fun? So then we got Chapter 9 here. That's going to be our resistance training, right? This is sort of the main section here. Obviously, we know there's a lot of benefits to training in resistance for youth. It's safe. It increases their motor skills, body composition, bone mineral density because it's weight bearing. All these incredible, incredible benefits. Generally, as a rule of thumb, you want to focus on 2 to 3 days a week when it comes to resistance training. You want to perform for youths around 1 to 3 sets. This is saying 3 to 5 repetitions. I believe that's a typo. One of them have between 6 and 15 repetitions. Always make sure that your exercises can be progressed up the OPT, but also regressed down the OPT. And they can be you can increase the difficulty or decrease the difficulty. If we are training, for stabilization, we increase difficulty by making it more unstable. If we're training for strength, we increase the difficulty by making it heavier. And if we're increasing the power, we increase the difficulty by making it heavier or more explosive. Then we got the nutrition. We've got carbohydrates, which are going to be a really good source of vitamins and minerals. Those are part of your macronutrients, right? Our 6 essential nutrients that we've got: carbs, proteins, and fats. Those are your macronutrients. vitamins, minerals, those are your micronutrients, and water. So carbs are a really good source of fuel for all your activities, and they should be about 45 to 65% of your total intake of calories per day. Protein also really important because that's going to give our body structure and repair after damage, through exercise or activity or whatever. Good sources include lean meats, seafood, and protein, but you can also always get protein from soy products, dairy products, beans, nuts, or seeds. Those are all really good sources as well. Generally, for youths, we want to focus on a 10 to 30% intake of protein overall. We've also got dietary fat. That's our third macronutrient here. Generally, you're going to focus on leaner meats, and seafood is a good source of fat, but also healthy oils, right? Fat-free, low-fat dairy products, or the use of like vegetable or olive oils and things like that. Avocado oil is a really good one. And generally, your intake is going to be anywhere from 25 to 35% of your total intake. Then we also have our micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. The primary ones we're going to focus on for youths are going to be vitamin D and calcium so that we can effectively grow healthy bones. But potassium is really important to keep muscles from cramping as well. So obviously all of your vitamins, all of your minerals are important. We want to make sure that we're getting plenty of those and getting plenty of nutrient-dense food rather than just energy-dense food, right? We don't want calories. I mean, we want calories, but we want to have plenty of calories with plenty of nutrients as well. And when it comes to water, you want to make sure that water and sports drinks are available for youths whenever you're training them, because heat-related illnesses are so common. Kids tend to overheat really, really easily. So make sure you're drinking enough water before, during, and after exercise, right? Or before you do a super long PowerPoint talk. One of the other tools that we have at our disposal is the MyPlate, right? This is going to be general dietary guidelines that we should follow. Half of the plate is going to be made up of fruits and vegetables, with the other half being evenly divided between whole grains and lean proteins, with a little bit of dairy there as well. You can learn more about that at choosemyplate.gov. So that's a quick review of sort of our whole thing there in terms of general information that will be covered in this final exam. You might get some questions that are related to phases as well. We did kind of only just go over levels. Remember, in level 1, you only have the stabilization rules, right? But in level 2, you've got strength endurance, which involves supersets of a strength with the stabilization exercise. You've got hypertrophy, which is muscular growth and a higher intensity. You've got max strength, which is a maximal intensity. And then you've got power, which when we talk about training regular adults, we are also going to use supersets in. Strength first, power second. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. You can email me, you can text me. I guess this is going up on YouTube, so you can leave a comment. That would be weird. You guys can do any version that you want to do to get a hold of me. We will be sending out the exam later today. Actually, technically, it's already gone out. Once you feel you are confident that you're going to review, you can take that exam. We are going to do a 5:30 session tonight, where we'll do a review in person. It's a little more in depth than this video is.